unbridled, not under control. Yeah.
Sally's ugly and he's gay.
Yeah. Sally's ugly and he's gay. Yeah.
One of the dangers with the marriage thing that I think we have to watch and really start naming is that we do not copy this paradigm for gay and lesbian sexuality. The only acceptable gay and lesbian sexuality is within marriage. That's, and it won't take long to zoom right there.
So that one of the new dividing lines is good gays marry, bad gays don't. It's also because the Christian tradition has generated primarily a theology and ethic of fear and control. That sex, gender, sexuality is a source of endangerment that needs to be restrained, needs to be contained, needs to be controlled. And where do you put sex? The container has been marriage. But as someone rightly put on our descriptor, the Christian ethic has been noticeably patriarchal. Oh, wrong page. Oh, that's the good page. Sorry. Yeah, that's not what we want. Thank you. Patriarchal and procreative. So Augustine's perspective that sex is always tainted by sin, that can be redeemed if it's for a good purpose outside itself, meaning not for the experience of pleasure, but in order to procreate, if it serves a rational end outside itself. So the marriage ethic has been highly invested in a procreative mandate, and marriage has been imaged as a patriarchal arrangement, which means Christian sex is only authorized within a structure of unequal power. Typically dominant male, subordinate female. So that's our marriage ethic. It's procreative, it's patriarchal, and my question is, given this conventional frame, why is there not more craziness about gender, sex, and sexuality than we have? We have plenty, but given that legacy, what's remarkable is that we have any sanity at all, and sense of well-being around these matters. Okay, let me just check and see. Yes. Oh, yeah, Rebecca.
A lot of these ethics, not only in Christianity but in Judaism and Islam as well, emerged out of patrilineal cultures as well. And so if you trace the sort of family through the father, then you have to be clear who are the offspring of that man. And so you have to control women's sexuality so that she's not off whoring around, so you can trace the line, which so patriarchal and patrilineal, I thought that was an interesting insight to me.
It's really helpful to hear, because the other part of this is the whose theology is this? This is a male theology that says the danger comes from women, not from the exercise of male power and authority. It comes from women. So that the designated problem around sexuality is fundamentally the problem of controlling women.
But that also leads to the identification of gay male as bottom, which is feminization, and for the lesbian taking on the male role. So it's really at heart a gender transgression.
It is. It is. And so it's why in the popular culture homosexuality is often understood as a problem of gender confusion. That men are failing to act like real men, women are failing to act like real women. And to then get people back into their places and doing their duty. Was there a, yeah. Yeah, right. Why talk to her? Yeah, yeah.
And you're cautioning him.
Yes.
You never say anything back
Yeah,
to her.
yes.
And they want to say, Jesus, come on, but it's Christ that says,
No.
you know, I'm talking to her.
Right.
Why don't you do it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, very, very, very good point. It's also, I think, out of this legacy that we've had a preoccupation with sexual acts, not relationships, but sexual acts, and that the preoccupation has been genital focused. So I think we've done pretty much what I wanted us to do, except to say one last thing. I think part of the legacy from this perspective is not only the cognitive awareness, but the somatic experience that what is erotic is dependent upon power inequalities. That being turned on is when you have someone else under your control and you're getting them to do what you want them to do for you. You're using, consuming, and taking. Or it's the experience of being turned on by being placed under someone's control, of having your power turned over to another. And so, and the problem is we don't just intellectualize this. This is also, say what? Wired. It's embodied. It's in our bodies.
And you subvert that by play.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and I think that's what we're all trying.
I'm raising that because there's a whole fetish community that's connected to the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And, you know, they focus on the top, but the bottom's always in control.
Yeah.
And, you know, certainly when I want to upset all my folks and friends who are tops, I said, and I paraphrase C.S. Lewis, I said, everyone is a bottom to God.
Well, it's a very important and interesting question. I'm not going to move us into a full conversation about that, except to say it's one of those places that I think many people struggle. Is that kind of play a critique and transformation of power inequalities, or does it reinforce and stabilize? And again, the answer is not a clear yes, no, right, wrong, but I think it's one of those sort of contradictions and ambiguities that we need to be able to identify and as communities sort out. One of the things I've used for some time in talking about this paradigm is Christian sexual fundamentalism. That there is a paradigm that says there is one and only one right way to be a sexual person and to be Christian. And we've identified that. Heterosexual, married, forth and so on. Say what? Missionary, yeah. So let me just, if I could.
That's just starting to happen with 30-year-old men and younger that has pretty much paradigm has been that has now been branded Christianity, which is part of the reason there's such a huge exodus related to sex among young adults in the church. It's not just the gay community, it's everybody that sees that old paradigm that's 30 and under as crazy and it doesn't work for them, and that's not what they're doing. Do you have any stuff on that?
Yeah, well, let me take something out of order. It's a really good question, Dan. I think part of what helps me sometimes sort of sit with and try to sort some of this out is to think about what is the obligation in the faith community to help educate and equip us to incorporate our sexualities in our spirituality. And what does it mean then to be a self-respecting moral agent who engages in willful sexual behavior, meaning freely chosen, deliberate. And one of the ways I, in a shorthand fashion, have for myself defined good sex is I say good sex is at one and the same time pleasurable, it's erotically powerful, it moves our senses, our sensibilities, it's pleasurable and principled. That good sex is enjoyable, but it also is in sync with our deepest values and moral commitments. And so it is, how can we move to live as sexual persons with integrity, that this is integral and integrated to our whole selves. So Steve Clapp and some of his research associates did a significant research project about 10 years ago where they were interested in this question of particularly youth in faith communities and their experience and their attitudes around sexuality, broadly defined. Well, you know, my conviction is adults need sexuality education as much, if not more, than teenagers. But there's no funding for adult education. The funding is about educating teens, and the agenda, as we know, is about how you can control teens. So it fits with the familiar paradigm is sex is a problem, and how do you get them to not start or stop or so forth. Steve Clapp wanted to explore what was going on among religiously affiliated young people, and his cohort group were high school age, 9th through 12th grade, primarily U.S., some Canadian, about 2/3 Protestant, but also Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist. What the study, which is entitled Faith Matters, Teenagers, Sexuality, and Religion. And these are kids who are active in their congregations. They go to church or synagogue or mosque at least once a week. Often more are involved in youth leadership and so forth. So these are the kids who are most active in their faith communities. The message across the boards is their faith communities are failing them, and that what they identify over and over and over again is the debilitating sex negativity that comes from their faith tradition. That what's presented to them is fear-based, it's framed in terms of prohibitions, it's about control, it's about avoiding pregnancy, avoiding disease, avoiding this, avoiding that. And the young people say, when asked Clapp interviewed pastors and youth leaders and said, so what grade would you give yourself for the work you do around sexuality education in young people? And everyone said, well, you know, we could do more, and, you know, we want to, and let B plus.